Hello and welcome to the Codacy showcase of the quarter. We'll just hang on here one little minute to see give other people a chance to arrive. As people who work with me know me, I'm usually late to things, so let's give that back for a minute. But hi, hello to all the people I can see in the chat already. 14 people who are here already, which is a great start. Perhaps take a moment to look at the chat and say hi, and also I draw your attention to the Q&A tab where you'll be able to ask questions as we go. So I think I've filmed enough for now, so let's crack on. Welcome to our showcase event for the quarter, Defusing the AI Coding Time Bomb. I love this image. Our marketing people came up with this idea, and I think it suits what's going on right now in software engineering perfectly, because, you know, I feel like we've spent the last 10 years, maybe, probably more than that, trying desperately to professionalize what we do as software engineers, you know, bringing in tools and processes and procedures, and, you know, using software, using versioning and PRs and mob review and agile and Scrum and extreme programming and test-driven development and all of these things to try and convince everybody that what we're doing is legit. And then AI coding comes along, and suddenly we are here. We're back, right back where we were. We're back in the Wild West, where everyone is doing whatever they want and nobody knows how it all works. So I think this is really, really apt. So welcome to our panel today. We have Aruneesh Salhotra, we have Luca Rossi, myself, and Luis Ventura. So Aruneesh is a member of the OWASP, a ton of, sorry, a tiny bit of background noise there, a ton of work in the OWASP organization. If you haven't heard of OWASP, then if you're in cybersecurity, you're kind of doing it wrong, right? So, and he's co-author of the OWASP LLM Top 10 and the forthcoming OWASP AI BOM standard, and we'll hear why both of those things are super interesting soon. Luca is, apart from being a general friend of Codacy, who we see around quite a lot, is a author and podcaster and newsletter creator, and formerly CTO of Wanderer, where he has honed his techniques and spends a lot of time talking to engineering leaders, working with engineering leaders to figure out how we do this. Luis is product engineer here at Codacy, so he has the job of figuring out how to turn my madcap requirements into things we build. So he suffers me very well. Thank you very much for this. And we have me, Kendra Curtis, VP of Technology at Codacy. So I'm across all of our product and engineering teams. I have the best, most fun job. It's great. And one part of that job is to bring you this quarterly. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about the landscape of LLMs and GRC in software development. GRC might be a new term to people more on the engineering side. I used to work for a health tech company, so that's all about GRC. That's governance, risk, and compliance. And then we'll show you how Codacy can help you with compliance and AI in software development. And then we'll come back and talk more about the new reality of what engineering looks like as people are actually doing it and living it right now. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide because that's not interesting. We can see our faces a bit better. So Aruneesh, if we could jump in and come to you first here as co-author of the OWASP LLM Top 10. You know, we are all now realizing that there is risk involved in using AI, both as a coding tool and within our applications. So, so what do you think are the... tell us a little bit about the OWASP LLM Top 10, and maybe pull out a couple of the key risks that we really ought to be worrying about.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for actually putting this together. So I would assume like most of the folks are aware of OWASP that you started with. So OWASP has like multiple projects which are focused on AI, and LLM Top 10 was probably the first project that started focusing on the AI adoption safely and securely. But there is another project that I co-lead, which is called AI Exchange, OWASP AI Exchange, which is kind of focused on the red teaming, the threats, and the controls mapping. How do you actually mitigate the risk? So that's one project that I co-lead, and there's another project which you actually rightly pointed out, which is focused on the bill of material when you are talking about AI getting used within an organization, whether you're building the application yourself or you're insourcing a product from outside, like how it's structured, how it has been trained, all of that, right? So it's a new project and it's gaining a lot of traction on this, right? And I think this project kind of resonates with developers very, very closely itself. Like most of the developers are already aware of the software bill of material. This is kind of taking an extension of that particular thing and talking about how my AI system has been created, right? And what kind of things are I'm including in my pipeline, whether it's my at the CI/CD pipeline, the libraries that I'm using to build those artifacts, and how I'm like fine tuning, and I'm integrating all this controls into my CI/CD pipeline, right? So that project is focused on that one, and it goes extra notch just from a tooling perspective. It also goes into the regulation side of what the regulators are trying to find in terms of the AI bill of material, right? There are a lot of requirement. Most of the regulations across the world. I mean, like, there are 100+ regulations out there, and everybody, instead of calling it like AI bill of material in a consistent fashion, but it's kind of resonates with that particular terminology itself, right? So it's focused on like how do you operationalize this, right? When we talk about taking a particular product or an application, going from my testing to production to my monitoring, when something happens, let's say a next log4j happen, right? How do you actually take action on that, right? And what are the regulators or it is like viewpoint on that one, right? So this project is focused on that one. So coming back to today's discussion, which is talking about how AI is getting used to integrate into my developer ecosystem, right? So again, we all know that uh, whether it's Cursor or any other system out there, it's getting used and it's getting used like widely. So there are some business requirements on to ensure whether we are getting into new business or we want to actually fast track AI integration into my existing application. It's getting used, right? But at the same time, there are a lot of obligations organizations have to say, okay, you need to do it in a compliant fashion. Whether you go back like 2 years when the LLMs were kind of bringing in, you had to abide by some of the compliance requirements, whether it's specific to EU 4201 or any other regulation out there. If you're in Middle East, for example, there are regulations out there, so you have to comply by all those things, right? And it needs to be done in a more of a continuous compliance way instead of doing like a point in time, right? So whether you're in the security organization or development organization itself, you have to ensure like all the compliance requirements that are there. Some of them are like very, very basic right now, but need to do it in a fashion that all the existing policies that you had in the old traditional like software development thing are getting carried over along with other requirements that are coming in from a AI governance standpoint, right? So this particular thing is going to get more and more traction as more and governance frameworks come about on this one. We are kind of on a light touch, I would say. It's going to increase uh, a lot more adoption and a lot more scrutiny in the coming few quarters itself, right?
Yeah.
And all these projects that I mentioned have something to do with that particular adoption and ensuring there is some sort of a playbook for organizations to adopt AI safely and securely in a more responsible way, right?
It's interesting that you dwell a lot on regulation there, because I mean, from my perspective, I don't feel like regulation has penetrated very much into what people are worried about right now. Luca, I'd ask you if you are hearing in your conversations if people are worried about having to conform with particular regulations to do an AI, and if there are particular ones we ought to be looking at. I think you're muted.
Classic rookie mistake. So I think that one of the best analogies I've found on how to think about AI is that of an amplifier of your kind of your team behavior, good and bad. And so even when it comes, I think, to your posture towards these kind of themes, security and compliance, I think it really, the way you look at AI really depends on how you looked at this even before that. And so if you had like a measured, considerate approach, chances are you're looking at AI as a way to raise the floor of what you can do to be compliant with with some regulations and stuff. While if you were reckless before, chances are AI is going to make you even more reckless, and it's not going to fix this. So people who were concerned about this in a nutshell, people who were concerned about these topics before are going to be concerned that AI reduces, the amount of control you have on the code that gets produced and everything else. But if you were not concerned before, I don't think AI is going to change your mind.
Yeah, that is a good point. And we hear that exact thing a lot, that it does just, it amplifies your abilities and your shortcomings, right? We mentioned AI bomb a little bit here, Aruneesh. Can you clear up for me whether that is covering one or other or both of your developers are using coding tools to build software, and you are building software that contains LLM elements? Is AI bomb across both of those, or is it just one or the other?
I think it's across the board. Actually, it's a very wise question that you asked, right? Because I think traditionally AI bomb people have been talking about what's happening and more on the other side, the second use case that you talked about. But I think if you really want to actually create a system of record of bill of material, it needs to be very comprehensive, right? How the system was created, like more end to end, right? So it actually catered towards the system that you have, the infrastructure where things are getting built, right? The kind of parameters that you have when you're building, and everything that's happening on the build time as well as the runtime itself, right? So it's a very comprehensive thing, right? I would say for AI bomb, it's a big goal that we have undertaken, but I think the intent is to actually accomplish all of this, and it's a community based project, right? So we are kind of incentivizing developers, the AI security folks, organization, communities that are out there to actually contribute towards this one. So to answer your question in a nutshell, it's exactly on the both sides.
Sure. And then once we have our, like, from someone who works in tooling, right? For us, it's very easy to, at least within the software artifacts, find the bits that are relevant to LLMs. But once we've got it, what are you expecting that we do with that information then?
So I think one thing that I would say, so I was also a co-chair for SBOM initiative as part of the Department of Homeland Security in US. I was co-chair for almost a year and a half. And one of the things that we are trying to take from that one also is involve the regulators and policymakers at the get-go itself, right? So it's no point of creating something in isolation, that we create some crafty set of tools within the AI bomb project itself, right? And there is no use case out there. So we need to ensure like what regulators are truly asking for, right? What are the requirements? That would actually dictate the kind of usage that you have. So one of the goals that I have for the project itself when I started this one was like, how do you operationalize? The tooling is easy, the format is easy part, right? Like what kind of fields are required, what kind of tooling kind of caters towards, right? My biggest aim is how do you operationalize? There's no point of like taking an AI bomb or SBOM shoving into your GitHub or GitLab itself, right? When the next log4j happen, or let's say there is a vulnerability for one of the foundation models happen, right? What is the guidance that we are giving to organization to really do as a next step, right? And are you connecting your threat intel feeds into the AI bomb, right? How do you react, and how do you react fast? Because gone are the days where the reaction time could be like 1 or 2 hours, right? To ensure like you can actually contain the damage. Right now we're talking about like minutes, if not seconds itself, for the impact to actually go widespread, right? So every intent is about like integrating threat intel in real time, and really making sure like the ISACs of the world is more real time, right? Of sorts. How do you actually communicate? How do you share the intel in real time?
Yeah, so that's interesting. This is really an enabler for running more tools on top of that to do that sort of real-time analysis rather than being an end in itself. Cool, and that feels much more worthwhile doing than generating an AI bomb. If what you're actually doing is you are generating something which is going to be the input for another tool to then be utilized. Coming back to the OWASP LLM top 10, are there any insights that we have that you can bring us that are sort of shovel ready from that? I hope that we all know roughly what's in the OWASP regular top 10 in terms of SQL injection and so on. So what are some of the top threats from LLMs that we ought to be concerned about?
Well, like the top one that always stands out is your prompt injection, right? I mean, like, for the 2 versions for LLM top 10 that haven't been published, the prompt injection is and will probably continue to be the top one for the years to come, right? Because that's an area which is very difficult to actually solve, because in the age of multimodal application that you're living in, right, the prompt injection is fairly complicated itself. So that's going to be one of the top risks that organizations will have, right? And again, like LLM top 10 has gone through 2 revisions, but I mean, like, it could very well be possible when the next version comes out, you might have different kind of vulnerabilities, or the top 10 might happen, right? Especially in the age of agentic AI, like the risk is going to increase by the day, right?
Sure. And Luca, I guess from your perspective, are you feeling that noise in the market? Are you feeling engineering leaders going, "Oh, we have to do something about prompt injection," or do you think that pressure is still coming from either is it coming at all, or is it coming from the outside?
So I think it's very hard to generalize. One trend that we have run our own research about how individuals and teams are using AI, whether they are individual contributors or managers. Something that we are noticing is that counterintuitively, individual contributors like engineers tend to want to have a tighter feedback loop and higher level of control on code, single lines of code, and so put in place workflows and ways to work with AI that is very hands-on, while managers sometimes, again, counterintuitively, are being a little bit more reckless and running like agents in background while they're in meetings, and they're getting more hands-on, but they don't retain the same level of control. But then again, I think the level of discipline that you put into this matches the level of discipline that you kind of had before, and in that case, either AI helps you in even lowering the level of threat for these things, or it increases. But I think for people who are optimists and enthusiasts about using AI, the potential trumps over these things, and they tend to get a pass, right?
Yeah. As a manager, I resemble that remark.
You're guilty of running agency background during meetings. Tell us.
Absolutely, yes. As someone who was formerly a developer, it is like it's like being a kid again. Suddenly you can make stuff happen and you don't actually have to think too hard about it. I do make sure I carefully constrain myself to not mucking about with production code. And I think that is something. The thing is, that is a rule of thumb that we've been giving managers for a long time anyway, right? Which is like, absolutely keep your hand in technically if you want to, but you can't be on the critical path to delivery of anything because you can't have people waiting on you. And so if you take that seriously, then we are self-selecting ourselves into lower risk environments in the first place, right? I know a lot of managers who actually like to mess about on the data science side of thing, I think, because it scratches that itch of being able to do something with code without actually impacting anything.
Yeah, true.
I think I'll just add,
please.
I'll probably just add one more thing on this one. I mean, again, I also come from a pure development background. my previous life itself, right? So it's actually all cool, and it's all very exciting for developers to actually create something very, very quickly. But one of the things that I find very, very challenging for organization is the apparent like technical debt to increase multifold, because the code that is being generated may not be the best performant code, or it might not be the most secure code, right? And it just depends on what kind of framework you're using, what kind of tooling that you use for the code generation. But unless you have like something in which is in like inline in maybe in a sandbox environment where you can quickly test the code that being generated is secure or not, right? Instead of going at after like a post commit level where you're kind of doing the integration, if you're not doing anything at the ID level, catching all at least 90% of the issues upfront, I think the technical debt is definitely going to increase, if not reduce.
Yeah, I think it comes down to absolute numbers, right? If nothing else, then if everybody's writing 3 times more code, and you have an average of 1 security vulnerability per 1,000 lines of code, well, suddenly you've got 3 times more security vulnerabilities, right? Unless you actually have, as you say, guardrails. We have a product for that, to keep on top of this stuff as you're coding. Daniel's asked a question in the chat around what processes we use to keep AI code in check, and that's going to be a great segue to pick up in the second part of this conversation. So I've nailed the segue into that already, and muffed the segue into what we're going to talk about now, which is for Lewis to show us a little bit around what Codacy has been doing on the topic of AI risk mitigation and compliance. And we've got 2 things to show. So, Lewis, over to you.
Thank you, Kendrick, and thank you, Daniel, for the segue. I will share my screen and show a little bit of what we've been building, at least some of the stuff. We have a lot coming up both today and the following days, so we hope you'll be as happy as we are. Okay, I hope everyone can see my application. So this is our Codacy UI with our shiny new, well, not new, newish dark mode that our developers love, because you know who uses light modes anyways, right? So our AI Risk Hub is our first step into helping our users de-risk their AI usage. Basically, at this point, we have a mix and match of things that we have already in place to help you feel safer, and we also have a couple of things identified as preview, which we hope you'll interact with and give us feedback on if you find those things interesting, as we are still investigating a little bit what will be most useful for our users, what they find the most risky in when adopting AI, that kind of stuff. So this is a very small organization that we created for this particular demo. It has only a single repository, and on our new AI Risk Hub, we allow you to set up what we call an AI policy, which is basically a coding standard that is created by us and helps you specify rules that are especially useful when you are using AI to code with. So if you click the enable AI policy, we'll basically create this coding standard for you, and then it will be by default applied to any new repo that you add to Codacy, and you can check it, although you cannot disable what we have enabled. You'll be able to see the rules and so on. The kind of rules that we have enabled here, we are still in the... Sorry, go ahead.
Mind zooming in a bit, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if this helps. So the kind of rules that we have here are not just AI specific, but they are problems that we are afraid will be exacerbated with the usage of AI. So for example, we highly recommend the usage of Trivy, which we use to detect insecure dependencies. We use to detect secrets. And as of yesterday, I believe, we use to detect malicious packages. So that's also a new feature. I hope you guys enjoy that one. We tag those patterns with the the corresponding tags so that any issues that have those tags, you'll be able to quickly identify them. And if I go back here to our risk hub, we basically give you an AI risk checklist that corresponds to a score to evaluate how risky or how at risk your organization is while adopting AI for coding. At this point, our risk is based on the number of checks that you have that are passing. We are still evaluating what weights to give to each specific check, because of course the number of issues is probably more important than coverage, for example. Don't disregard coverage, please. Coverage is very important, especially if you're coding with AI, because you need to be sure that the code AI is generating does what it says it does. Anyways, the checks are if the AI policy is both created and if so applied to your repos, if coverage is enabled, if you have created quality gates for your pull requests, if the pull requests are actually being analyzed. This is kind of a sneak peek into another feature that we'll be talking about in the near future. But basically, your pull requests will tell them exactly how many pull requests we have, how many we pick up, and how many are passing or failing the gates. Our daily vulnerability scans and the application scan would refer to our SCA and DEST functionalities, and the AI bomb, which is grayed out because it's still a work in progress. So let me try to find an org which has some more interesting examples here. So for example, this troubleshooter Codacy organization, which we use to basically test our features. You have here filters that will depend on the type of issues. Currently, we looked into unapproved models, AI safety, secrets, or vulnerabilities. Unapproved models are all of the patterns that we have in place to identify usage of AI models that you use in your code. At this point in time, we already have several rules in place that detect if you are using AI libs and so on, and flagging them as medium. As of today, we are actually releasing a new rule that is created by us. So it's still not part of the default rules, but this is a rule that we are creating and testing as we speak, where you are actually able to specify your allow list, and it will flag basically unrecognized models or unallowed models, so to say, as an high-risk security issue, because you might have a contract with a specific provider, you might not want to use specific models. So we are basically going the route of allowing you to specify which models you actually want to permit. Safety usage, this is twofold. So on one way, we have started to create rules for problems that target AI specifically. For example, recently we know that some MCP servers were affected by, well, some of them were actually affected. Some have attacks being introduced to them, or attempted to being introduced to them, by using invisible Unicode characters. We actually had a rule for that out since, I believe, since March of this year. So for a while already, we are making it easier to notice that we have these rules available and for you to turn them on. On the other hand, regular OWASP top 10 issues are still prevalent, are still a problem, with AI code being generated where you may not pay as much attention. Those are extra important, so we are in the process of actually tagging our patterns that help identify those issues, and those will also apply to the AI safety filter that you have here. Secrets is pretty straightforward, introducing hard-coded passwords, stuff like that, which is a no-no, and AI loves to do it from time to time. And vulnerabilities, everything that is related to vulnerabilities, such as insecure dependencies, malicious dependencies. I already kind of went through it. If you click on the specific ones, you will see a list of repositories that have those issues. At this point in time, we are taking you to the repo that is affected, but we are currently doing a change to actually take you directly into the issues page, filtered, for example, by secrets. If you have selected the filters, the secrets filter, so that we make it even easier for you to identify these types of issues. I know that I'm taking a bit. Just one last thing to showcase on the AI risk checklist. So besides what we already have, we know that there are some concerns related to AI, not just related to code quality and security. In fact, Aruneesh, that worked on the OWASP Top 10 LLM, is aware of a bunch of them. So we have this button here to download an AI risk checklist for everyone who's concerned with adopting AI in their organization. This is mostly based on the OWASP governance checklist, and we also have some sprinkles on top from Codacy's own AI risk report that was an initiative done by our very own CEO, Jaime. On the ensuring code safety part, we of course tell you that Codacy can help you with ensuring a bunch of these checks, but on a wider process/organization level, you have a bunch of recommendations/requirements here that we hope you'll take a look into. I don't think there are any questions yet. I will go to the pull request review part next. Just quick note that for the pull request part that I am showing now, it is temporarily available only on GitHub. We will be extending this to the other providers that we support in the near future. And basically what we did was we've been testing out a few pull request reviewers, right? Everyone does, or at least should. And we feel that often they are very noisy and the quality isn't really up to par when it comes to the comments that it makes. So we thought to ourselves, okay, we have a bunch of data about the quality of our users' code. We know if they have coverage. We know if they have issues. We have a bunch of deterministic checks right in place. So why not use those and try to make the reviews a bit more targeted, use that context to actually increase the quality of those reviews. And basically that's what we did with this. We have enabled this, we have created this pull request reviewer. We are going to be releasing it today. You should be able to see it soon. And basically, well, it's a pull request reviewer, right? It will take in the information that Codacy feeds it. It will use that to do a couple of comments. It has an overview here. And I think the best way to show this is to show you a glimpse at a couple of examples. I'm sure that in the future we'll be able to show some more real usage, but for the sake of time, I went into some pull requests that we created. So this pull request here that I will not show because it actually is a feature that we worked on, adding the malicious package scanner. A quick shout out to Kendrick. He says he doesn't touch production code, but he did kickstart this. And then we had our engineering team
They did it properly.
fix the pull request. Anyways.
Can you zoom in again a little bit on it? It's like, I no ego around my code.
Yeah, as I was saying, for example, this one had an interesting comment here about, hey, you are adding into memory the new database, which has the malicious packages. This can increase container start time and memory. Be sure that this is this can be a problem. And in fact, we did tweak our infrastructure to support this, but if we didn't, it would land us in hot water. So it was a good comment to have here. Also, sorry, let me just go back here a little bit. Also, we also used our own code as testing for the pull request reviewer. So our engineers used it. They took a look at the comments to see if they were useful or not. And basically we dog feed on this, and it was very helpful to us. So just a quick shout out to our engineering team, because I'm sure they'll appreciate it and they do deserve it. I had this here open just to talk a little bit about our malicious package feature that uses the OpenSSF database. And we basically inject this into Trivy and use it to check if there are any issues. Just a quick shout out to OpenSSF as well. This is another example. This is Dumber code. It was written by me, so that is expected. We have, for example, insights on the coverage saying that it is below, thank you, Jaime, that is below the quality gates. For example, I was lazy and duplicated an existing class, which the reviewer does say, hey, why are you duplicating this? Why don't you use the existing one, and so on. You have this amazing method here to calculate a grade, which I'm sure any engineer in the room will be crying if they look at this. But yeah, basically just to say that we actually can get some interesting insights, such as, hey, this is completely uncovered by tests, as indicated by the coverage report that Codacy has access to. Given its complex branching, do extract into metas, properly test, and so on. Basically, it has insights on how to actually fix this and not just noise, which is what we were trying to do. While I was playing around with this is just the code, our lovely Claudia, which is one of the designers at Codacy, also created a test application to validate that the reviewer was working. So she basically did a to-do app. She vibe coded it. I will not be showing you the code, but basically it is a simple app that adds to-dos, has the option to delete, and does nothing else for the most part. And then she did what some junior developers are eager to do. So she created a list of what it does. She included what it should do but doesn't on the list. She lies saying she had a test and documentation, need an approve in an hour, please help. So we put this through our Codacy reviewer, and we actually got some very interesting insights. So for example, architectural problems that it identifies. It identifies incorrect file references. So she used Pompous to do .css instead of to do .css. And we also look at the description. And for example, in here, it complains that we state that we have tests in the description, but we really don't. We say in the description that we have checks and edit, and we also do not have those features implemented. So our pull request reviewer is an attempt of having an extra team member looking at your code and providing the kind of insights that a human would, basically. As I said, this will be available today. If you want to available it, you can go into your integration settings, both at organization and repository level. It will be under the status checks, and we hope that you will basically play around with it. Let us know what you feel. We are still playing a little bit with the designs, how we should post the comments and so on. So you'll see some differences in the coming days. Our flow will be that you will have first a comment, basically just with a summary of what is affecting your code, how many issues, security issues, complexity, and duplications, some of the deterministic metrics that we have and we feed into our enrichment process, with a quick link to review the pull request in Codacy, as well as instructions on how to actually trigger the review. For now, we want to trigger it manually because we feel that these reviews sometimes are too noisy. So at this point in time, we ask you to basically add a label in here called Codacy Review. We do have the instructions there to tell you how to do it. In the future, depending on feedback, we might make this automatic if people enjoy that route more. But yeah, this is it for the AI de-risking features. If you have any questions, I guess we can take them during Q&A. Kendrick, I'll hand it back over to you.
Super, thank you, Lewis. Yeah, so that's our attempt to answer the question of what people are doing to try and de-risk AI coding. Luca, what else are people trying to use to de-risk AI coding? And you are muted again.
Yeah, I like always to start when I'm muted. So we have run a lot of surveys on the audience of our own community, and even one-on-ones to get more qualitative ideas. By far, the number one concern by everyone, both software engineers and managers, is code quality, which I think is deserved, not necessarily because AI necessarily makes code quality worse, but I think with respect to other factors like, I don't know, short-term speed and throughput, doing a good job on quality needs to be earned. You know, it's something that requires more intentional work. So if you look at the simple trade-off, you know, speed versus quality, I know it's simplified, but feels like when you use AI out of the box, you get apparently like more speed by simply, you know, using it naturally because you prompt and you get code, but to get benefits about quality, you had to put in some work, right? And so the number one concern is definitely that we are pushing out more code that we have less control on, and so on. Over the long term, this is gonna increase the time we spend on maintenance. It's gonna have a lot of bugs, technical debt, and so on. But we are also seeing teams that are actually using AI to improve their code quality. I mean, they're kind of flipping the narrative that is, can we use AI to actually improve what we do? And I think this goes back to the idea that AI acts as an amplifier. If you have good practices in place already, and you have good mindset, good ideas about what to look for in your code that defines quality for you, then AI is gonna do wonders, because you can raise the floor of the amount of control and checks that you can run in your code with ideas like the ones that we've seen in the demo, and save a lot of human time and cognitive load that can be spent on things that are higher level and higher value. So I think we should actively make this question, right? Instead of worrying about is AI making quality worse, we should ask ourselves, how can we use AI to make quality better? And I think there are very promising attempts and answers already to that. It's not just about making it easier and faster to do these kind of controls and reviews. It's about since it is now so fast and so cheap to do them, we are also looking at trends where this is going to shift more and more to the left. So it started with code reviews in the CI/CD, but then you have IDE plugins giving you feedback on the code that you are writing in the moment, and then you have MCP servers, like the work that you're doing at Codacy as well, that basically intercepts the code before it even hits the IDE, so you can literally not go more to the left than this. And so it looks to me like a very positive trend in general for what good engineering looks like to me and what we've always known. But it probably needs a little bit more of investment and intentional effort to get there.
Do you think we still need to read the code? Do we need to care about the code quality? Like, if AI is writing it and if AI is reviewing it, and we're shipping it to production, like, I think this is a really interesting question going forward. Like, how much do we actually need to be on top of and to be touching this stuff going forward?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting question, and I want to always approach this without being like too much opinionated. That is, I don't want to get too much attached to my, let's say, engineer identity. That is, I'm a crafter of lines of code, so I have to keep control over that. I want to start like with first principles on that, and I think it really depends. That is, if you try to invert the question and ask yourself, what happens if I actually don't look at lines of code? What could go wrong? And try to, you know, design the bad paths. And I think you find interesting things and interesting cases where maybe there are things outside of the critical path where the risk of pushing out something wrong is not too high. You have done a good job at putting in place basic code review checks, and then, or maybe you can have all kinds of middle ground solutions where you optimistically push code and then it gets reviewed after the fact asynchronously, right? And it's already something because you still have human reviews, but it's not blocking. So I think we can experiment, and it's all about thinking that it's not one size fits all. You will probably still going to want to have a tight control over the critical path of your code for a long time, but you may experiment with higher autonomy on things that where it's basically better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, right? What are these parts in your product maybe that you could try to build these mini autonomous stories already? It's so interesting to think about this.
Yeah. Aruneesh, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, can I jump in? So I think Luca is completely right. Right. One of the things that I want to add, I think it depends on the maturity for an organization, and without naming one of the top tier bank in US itself, right? So they actually flip. At least going back 10 years ago, they used to experiment like flipping the data center and keeping both the data center hot, right? Which means like they heavily invested in the automation. I think the organization where the engineering has been ingrained into their DNA, and they have extremely good practices. They are the ones which are going to use or reap the benefits of AI on day one, right? If you have not invested in automation, I think it's going to be a little tricky. So I think like organizations which didn't have like good engineering practice, this is the time to actually ensure you invest a lot in automation and integration testing across the board, right? Because if you miss out on one particular thing, right, it can bite you in the back. If not today, maybe in like a few months or a few years down the line, right? So you need to ensure you are investing heavily on this, right? The moment a new code comes in, how do you actually validate that? Right? And I think I saw some comment in this in the chat talking about LLM are not intelligent. And I think if you look at how the LLMs have been created, how Cloud has been created, it's based on all the open source code out there, right? And if all the code for the last 30, 40 years was secure and performant, we would not have QA and security organization. But for the last 20 years, we have seen like the importance of QA and now importance of security. So I think like we definitely need to take that into account whenever we're making decisions around the policy for an organization, how much involvement you need to have for reviewers in an organization. So I would say at least personally, I cannot discount the fact like the need for reviewers, especially if you're working in regulated industries, because penalty for that is wide and broader.
Yeah, there are definitely some things where someone needs to put their skin in the game, right? And say, like, whether I've read it or not, I am accountable for this code now. Yeah. And to come back to Luca's point about doing it at different scales, yeah, I think this was one of the very first talks that we did together, Luca, like 2.5 years ago. You were doing something about how to do like retroactive code reviews and code reviews at different depths of detail, depending on how critical it was to the business. So it's kind of interesting to see that idea is still really relevant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've long believed that. I mean, this has nothing to do with AI. Probably that having a one-size-fits-all process for how code reviews are run is probably not the optimal way of doing them, because the default workflow that most teams have, like asynchronous written reviews in different passes. It's not the best one, I think, for all the situations. So if you have a very complex change, you might just as well pair with your engineer and do that synchronously, because you eliminate a lot of overhead and you get deep reviews. Or if it's on the other hand, If it's something that is very trivial, you might just as well like review it after the fact, and not block, the deploy or the release, and trust the engineers. So I think code reviews are such a cornerstone of the development processes that it's natural that we are talking a lot about this. And they also happen to be, I think, from what we are seeing, the number one team use case for AI usage and AI adoption, because it feels like the thing that is more plug and play. You attach a tool to your code base, and it is able to help you from the get-go, as opposed to other types of usage of AI that requires more effort beforehand. So it's very interesting what is happening in that part of the development process.
Yeah, I find it a bit infuriating, honestly, that there are lots of products out there that basically say, here's the diff, package that all up and send it off to an LLM and say, comment on this diff, the end. We have only done this now in Codacy, now that we can actually pump in some extra data there to say, okay, here is the coverage, here are the security issues. Now give us something which is a bit richer than that. I remember Cursor launching BugBot basically overnight, and that's exactly what Cursor does. So, one last question, I think, to close on for both of you. Like, looking ahead, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, do we still have software engineers in 10 years' time, really? Or are we all just self-actualized product designers who just have a load of buttons to push to make everything happen for us?
I don't know who wants to go first. I will give my answer, which is a non-answer. That is, I think there is a lot of anxiety around this topic, but my feeling is that a lot of this anxiety comes from this idea that at some point there is like this singularity moment where from one day to the next, engineers are not needed anymore because AI surpasses us and it's done, right? From tomorrow, we don't need engineers anymore. I think this is misguided. And I think even if we admit that these systems will continue to improve indefinitely, this is always going to be a gradual process. And so we as humans, as organizations, we are going to gradually adapt and shift our role in a way that is not like a tectonic shift that happens over the course of a week, but it's going to take a decade, I don't know, but it's going to look like a continuous shift. And so if we are proactive and if we have a curious approach to the new technology and we don't shut ourselves, when I say ourselves, I mean engineers and people in tech, to new ways of doing things, I think we are going to do okay. Then I don't know if that means we will still be writing lines of code, we will just review code, we will not even look at lines of code, and we will version control stuff in natural language. I don't know that. But I think we'll just have a journey, a path that we can follow and gradually go in that direction.
Aruneesh, what do you think?
Yeah, I might have a slightly different answer to this one, and no offense to what Lucas was thinking, but I'm like a big fan of Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. So whatever statement he makes, I usually believe that. And maybe the timing might not be accurate from his thought itself, right? So he said, like, you don't need to teach computer scientists, right? I think it might be true maybe like few years down the line, not today, absolutely, right? I mean, like, as we talked about the automation, other engineering principles needs to be there. But also at the same time, you see a lot of billion-dollar companies which are cropping up these days with like 20 or less employees, right? So there is some merit of like how quickly you can actually create applications without not like an army of people. With 20 people, you can create like a very effective platform. The number of people that you would need in technology and also in the non-tech field, that definitely is going down. And I see it firsthand for all my clients. You can do a lot more with far less people. Does it eliminate the need of engineers or architects and stuff? Absolutely not. I think that might not ever happen. Not 5 years, not 10 years, but instead of having 100 people in technology, you might be able to actually do it with far less amount of people, right? And that number could be 50%, it could be 80%. And if you, so there is a, I'm forgetting the investor name. He's like one of the most prominent investor in Bay Area, right? So he made a comment that you would need only 20% of the people to run the way the world is operating right now. Whether it's going to be true, I don't think so. I would say like the reduction is definitely going to happen. It's already happening. Whether it's a wise decision, but it's a business decision to begin with, right? And if we truly like ChatGPT came 2023, it's like literally 3 years, and you see how much disruption or how much innovation AI has produced. I do not write my emails these days, right? And there is a presentation tool that I've been using, and that's like 10 times more productive for me. So, and if I talk about creating the code, there are a lot of non-tech people who are creating an application, creating the prototypes. So that is eliminating the need of like more of the initial designs for prototypes and stuff, right? So that's changing the landscape quite a bit.
Yes. So maybe the engineers are the only people we wind up left with. We'll see. Cool. Thank you, Luca, Aruneesh, Lewis. There's a few questions left in the chat, mostly around Codacy, so we'll just whip through those before we end in the last 4 minutes. Let's go front to back. So Dan has asked 3, which is great. Thank you. So with Shiny Halud, we have added malicious package detection. So in Codacy, you can we can find those for you. It's more of a static analysis thing. It's more SBOM rather than AI bomb because it's not particularly an AI problem. Lots of problems with AI are not particularly AI problems. It's just that AI does it a lot. So that's that. Could you run the AI PR reviewer, I presume, in parallels with Cursor Bugbot? Yes, you can. We've been running not Bugbot, but the VS Copilot reviewer alongside our one to see the difference, and ours is better, obviously. But please do evaluate that and tell us what you find if you think ours is not better. Very, very interested in that. New features not visible in Codacy yet, or is it GitHub only for now? So for the AI PR reviewer, that is initially targeting GitHub. GitHub is by far the largest market for our stuff, and they are the largest Git provider out there. So we do tend to work for GitHub first and then roll things out later after we've shaken a few of the kinks out of them. So if you are on GitLab, then you'll get to avoid the early hiccups. Finally, is Codacy planning on giving any indication on whether some model is more reliable or secure to use as a code agent or others? So we're already allowing you to choose yourself which models you want to consider to be allowed or not. I think we are going to continue to actually start to have a opinion here. Like, I know that I have a semgrep/opengrep rule floating around somewhere pre-release, which at least finds all of the obsolete models to say, okay, well, you really shouldn't be using GPT 3.5 Turbo anymore, right? Because that's just more expensive and less good than other options. So yes, I expect that we will do more of that. The models themselves are not necessarily, more or less secure, and obviously they're all differently good at their own things. We use a combination of OpenAI and Gemini. So the new AI PR reviewer is powered by Gemini, but our false positive detection that we do for our business tier customers to screen out false static analysis results, we use OpenAI for that. So what is reliable, I think, is still up in the air and will vary from team to team. I shall just check on the chat to see if there's any more questions there. I don't see any. So all that remains is for me to say thank you again to our panelists, Aruneesh and Luca and Lewis, and to you, the audience, for watching and listening. And join us again in approximately 3 months when we bring you another bundle of stuff with some expert and interesting and entertaining speakers to wrap it up in. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day. Have a good evening. and we'll see you soon.
For joining, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.